Hi, everyone. Welcome to the podcast. We have a returning guest, which we're honored to have back once again. He's agreed to come back, the one and only Mr. Adam Francisco, MAGA patriot extraordinaire, street team purveyor, and purveyor of truth, getting it out there on the streets to the people as needed. And we're excited to kind of get his insights on what he's been noticing out on the street. So if you're new to the podcast, please do like, subscribe, and share, as it helps the channel grow and others to gain in the knowledge you've been afforded. So Adam's out in the Florida area, a patriot, and has a very great background in a number of things, sales and marketing and business, and just a lover of America and wants to disprove the stereotypes and notions. And we're certainly all about that. So happy to have him back. How are you doing today, brother?
Jon, thank you so much for having me. This is round two. I had a good time the first time. So when you
Me
invited
too.
me back, I had to say yes. So here we are.
Well, I'm honored. We enjoyed. I enjoy you. The audience enjoys you, and I think the more they get to know you, it will engender and spread. So we're looking forward to it. So before I pull up the first video, so I watch you as much as I can. I know you're doing a lot of street podcasts and so forth. I've noticed that you've incorporated a couple of different people, some women and stuff. How did you bring them into the fold? Was that just sort of Germanic, or how did that happen?
I always enjoy having co-hosts in my channel. I think co-hosts and collaborations always add a new dynamic
Mhm.
to channels. I would say that in the past 3 years, the majority of my videos were me going out solo, waving a Trump flag by myself. And though a lot of those videos did pretty well, and I enjoy doing that. Don't get me wrong. I have the courage to go out on a street corner with a Trump flag or a Trump hat and engage in conversations. But I think YouTube is always more fun for the audience when there is a sense of like the Avengers, right? I think the reason why the Avengers movie was so popular is because people got to know these characters on an individual level, and then seeing them on screen together was such like an exciting holy crap moment. No other franchise had ever done that before in the cinematic universe. So it was so like evolutionary. And I think YouTube, a lot of it is kind of the same way.
Mm.
So I also do like helping out smaller creators.
Gotcha.
Someone like, for example, Patrioticpapi, she's a much smaller creator than me, but I think she's got a powerful voice. So I don't mind lending my channel and uplifting someone like Patrioticpapi. Other times I'll see creators that might be bigger on other platforms like TikTok or Instagram, such as Savannah Craven. She's
Mhm.
the girl that got assaulted, the pro-life activist. And I'll
Yes.
say, you know what? That's a good collaboration because I could benefit from her on Instagram and TikTok. She could benefit from me on YouTube. So there's a lot of like, it's a symbiotic relationship. So recently I've gotten in touch with bigger YouTube creators than myself, such as Caitlin Medit from Liberty Hangout, as well
Mhm.
as Alex Stein from Blaze TV.
Right.
So it really, when our audience starts to see these people that they recognize coming together, they get really excited, just like an Avengers movie. So I'm going to keep doing collaborations. Obviously, I'm going to be the focus on my own channel, but there's going to be a lot of guest appearances coming up, and I think that's going to be exciting for my audience to see.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Thank you for that. Now, when you go to scout a location that you go to, like the video I'm going to show in a minute in Tampa, is it a random thing, like where you are, or is it more of a calculated kind of an effort?
Yeah, it's so I find out about these different events through word of mouth usually.
Mhm.
I get them through Instagram and X. People send me, places that they hear about. And then, as you know, we spoke about this last time, I'm on dialysis. So I do have a medical commitment every day for, well, 5, 6 days a week for about 4 to 5 hours a day. That's how long the whole session takes. So I'm a little bit more limited than a healthy person would be in that I can't just get up and go. So a lot of it comes down to like my medical schedule. If I'm free and I've done my treatment for the day, or I'm going to do it later at night, and I can pretty much go wherever I want within reason from Tampa. The problem is though lately is I'm getting recognized more and more in Tampa by
Mhm.
organizers and by other protesters. So as soon as I show up and they recognize me, they kind of like block me from other conversations. And so I'm not getting, I mean, I still had a great video yesterday, don't get me wrong, but I'm getting recognized more by the other side, which is not good for content creation. So I am going to have to start branching out. And I will say that on June 14th, there is a very big nationwide protest. We believe, I don't know if it's true or not, we believe that this is being coordinated by massive corporations as well as massive uh, professional provocateurs and rich people. I'm
Mhm.
not going to name drop now on the stream because I don't know if any of it's true. But on June 14th, it's called the No Kings Day protest.
Yes.
There's going to be hundreds of protests all across the country, basically protesting everything they protest, plus the fact that Trump's doing a military parade that day to honor our military, which I'm surprised that they're against that. Everyone should kind of be for that. There's one here in Tampa, but I'm probably not going to go to that one because I want to branch out and go places where I'm not as recognized. So I'm not going to tell my audience where I'm going to be. I can't tell you either.
Sure.
But I will be somewhere other than Tampa on June 14th.
Great. Yes, and President Trump, as you know, we put on our Telegram today that, amongst others, that he has blatantly said that if there is any malfeasance or resistance at the parade, that they will be met with force. So he's already put the edict out. As you know, I'm here in yeah, exactly. You know, I'm here in LA, but thankfully I'm on the outskirts, so I'm protected. Thank you, Lord. But it's interesting because I was in Compton area, if you know the area, Friday to pick up some health products. And I had said to my friend, let's get out of here, not realizing a day and a half later what was going to ensue. And it's made its way all the way down to the 101, which is far north from me. What do you, in your estimation, doing this? And before we go to the video, the aforementioned video in Tampa, what do you think is a real impetus? Do you think that's this kind of a distraction for something else? It sure seems like it.
There's conspiracy theories I've been reading about that people think that Trump wants the violence because he wants to do the Insurrection Act and he wants to use military force across the country. I don't think that's true. I think Trump is actually trying to prevent Summer of Love 2.0. You know, we look back at 2020, they started as peaceful and then they got violent. Now, you could argue that it was leftists getting violent. You could argue that there was some right-wing provocateurs getting violent. I don't care. The bottom line is there was violence and there was over $1 billion worth of destruction. For comparison, by the way, there was only $2.7 million of damage on January 6th. So we're comparing billions versus millions. We also lost about 25 to 30 people in the Summer of Love riots, which almost got no airtime. The only person that died in the Summer of Love that I felt really got airtime was David Dorn. He was a police officer, I believe, in Ohio, and he was gunned down trying to protect an electronics store. So this was a black on black crime. It was a black opportunist mugger, a thug that was robbing a store and saw David Dorn just doing his duty for his community and then just killed him in cold blood. And there was a video of David Dorn that went viral. Rest in peace, David Dorn. And obviously condolences to his family. I still think about that man all the time. And so I think Trump bringing in the National Guard and bringing in 700 Marines and promising to bring in more, he's trying to prevent Summer of Love, which is ultimately going to save American lives. I don't understand why the left isn't getting through that. Trump cares about saving American lives and Americans first. So he needs to squash these, use strength, peace through strength to show if you F around, you're going to find out if these protests start spiking up in all these other liberal cesspools like New York and LA.
Yeah, I agree. No, I agree with you on that part. We tend to lean more on the side, Adam, here that it's being used as a tool, if you will, mostly so that he can do things like pass the big, beautiful bill, which includes a number of taxes like property tax, income tax, other things, but also, as I've alluded to before in our last podcast, really about the currency reset, the revaluation that's happening. He's really getting these people, like, notice he's getting China done. He's always doing a multitude of things at once. He's like the world's greatest multitasker, right? So he's getting these peace deals with China, these trade deals ginned up with Vietnam and many other, a host of great countries within the BRICS amalgamation, if you will. And so we think that it's kind of being used for that. Also, we're sort of hoping that he'll arrest Gavin Newsom's useless, we call him here, and other incompetent, corrupt mayors and governors throughout the country. That's sort of a cleaning opportunity or a cleansing operation for the country to see the corruption sort of opened and defrocked for everyone to see out in the open.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, and there's, again, these are all theories, but a lot of people say that he similarly handled the 2020 election the same way, that he knew it was going to be rigged. He knew it was going to be stolen. He did what he could, but also he was kind of happy that it was stolen because we got to have an apples to apples comparison of a Trump presidency followed immediately by a Biden presidency. And now we could see the corruption. We could see the agenda at play. And that's one of the reasons why Trump won. Not only did he win in 2024, but he had the House, he had the Senate, he had a powerful SCOTUS. He had a chance, there's those 4 years to sit back and behind the scenes work and put his chess pieces in play. So this ultimately worked out way better than we could have ever imagined. If he won, if he was actually allowed to serve in 2020 after what I believe winning the election, that would have been a, as we say, a cucked presidency. He would have been hamstringed by weak Mike Pence, who did not, I think, stand up for him on January 6th. But he had a chance to get everything in place for 2024, and that's why he is now officially the bull in the china shop, and we love to see it.
Yeah, 100%. And also to your point, Adam, uh, it would be detrimental to the country, and it would have been futile in many ways for him to. I mean, he obviously rightfully won 2020, but if he allowed that to happen, it would be sort of akin to on sinking sand, whereas you've got to level that foundation, right? Remove the corruption, drain the swamp, whatever, and then build it on a solid reset base where it could grow instead of having to constantly renovate all the time. Would be pointless.
Correct. And the irony and the whole big joke about him getting the 2020 rigged and stolen from him is Trump era would have been over by now. These leftists would have been, we would have moved on to either Republican or we would have moved on to a different Democrat, a Democrat. But, they stole it, rigged it, and now we get 4 more glorious years. And hopefully after this, we get J.D. Vance or someone else coming up next that's going to be, I think, very good as well.
Or he might just do 2028 outright and then go from there. So we'll have to see. It's
I mean, this is a really exciting times in politics. The most exciting time in my lifetime, and I love watching it.
I totally agree with you. It's like Christmas every day. You don't know what you're going to open up. And funny how the libs are not talking about the prices of eggs anymore, are they?
Eggs, after Trump took over in January, they did spike to $8, which was a continuation of the Biden economy and the Biden presidency. Right. But since then, after March, right, it was at $8. They have now tumbled to below $3. Yep. So Trump has cut the prices of eggs by almost 2.5 times. Yeah. And I think as this economy continues going, we're going to see the fruits of his policies start to take hold. In my opinion, it's probably going to be more in 2026. That's really when it's going to start to take effect. But very, very exciting signs that are happening in the economy.
No doubt. And I think there's some exciting things, as I mentioned, with the reset to look forward to this year. And as you said, have a continuation into next year that the public will be able to see front of center. Even here in California with eggs, for example, the prices are, I think it was like I paid, what was it, $4.50 something for a dozen, but they're not limiting the quantity anymore like they were. So there's little subtle things you just have to watch.
They were limiting the quantity before?
Yeah.
In California?
Yeah.
I never heard. I didn't even know they were doing that.
Yeah. Well, Trader Joe's is where I noticed it most prominently.
Wow. Yeah. I don't think we had a cap in Florida.
It's the difference between a winning red state and a losing blue state. So there you go.
Yeah. Just those little small examples of freedom that we have down here.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that was a thing. They were capping off eggs.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
See what I mean? So
wow.
Add that to your audience's cachet. So I'm sure you have people from California that you can talk to about that. But just an interesting aside. Right.
Because American is not an ethnicity. You could be Mexican heritage and be American citizen, kind of like me.
Right.
Everyone's got ancestry from other countries, but we're American.
Exactly.
So I just don't get, like, you're here, you want to prove that you want to be here, you want to prove that your family belongs here, you want to prove that illegals belong here, then wave the American flag. It would look so much more powerful for their cause if they all were waving American flags, like, we love this country, we want to be here, we want to assimilate. They don't do that.
Well, did you see the fear in her eyes when you challenged her? And also she said, I'm proud. Pride goes before a fall. That's pride and ego. That's just human flesh nonsense. But do they get their lines from the cliche store? Because they always say the same tired trope every time. They've been saying this for the last 60 years, and they're still in the same place they were before. They haven't seen a pattern here.
Yeah, and no matter how much we call them out on this, and we try to give them really good advice, they don't listen. I mean, even the Democrat, this is top down though, because, like, on my stream sometime, I'm always like, I don't want to give the Democrats any advice, but if I were to, I would tell them to stop siding with biological men and women sports. That's a good place to start. Show some normalcy, common sense, and moderation in your party, because 90% of Americans are against men against women. That's just common sense at this point. And yet they still won't. You'll have their politicians go on TV and defend why biological men should be competing against women. So this is a top-down problem. They don't change. They don't adapt. And this is why they're set up to lose again in 2028. So I love when they just keep acting this way, because it's just going to give us the election.
Well, it's just proof that brainwashing works. And that's how, the cabal has been doing it for decades, over generations, on the television and programming, and they fall right in line, like you said. And I also want to thank you as well, Adam. I forgot to mention this last time. You've done this consistently, and I want to give you props. Just me personally, as a Christian conservative pro-lifer, you stand up for the sanctity of life. And here they are talking about not hurting babies and protecting anchor babies, and yet they're the first ones to kill babies. I mean, it's just rife with hypocrisy. So thank you for taking a stand for life as well. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I used to be a pro-choice man. I used to believe that it was a clump of cells. I used to believe all that stuff. I thought it was a woman's right to choose. I thought as a man, I had no right to say anything. Um, and I don't know if I told you this last time, but I went through an abortion, meaning someone I was dating. This happened 8 years ago at this point, got pregnant. And it was the first time in my life that I had to deal with this experience head on.
Yeah.
And it made me start to think, like, what do I want to do? And I was still pro-choice, mind you, by the way.
Mhm.
But when I was confronted with knowing a girl I was dating, who I did like a lot, by the way, got pregnant with my child, my brain immediately went into survival mode of that child. It went into, I want to be a father. I have the financial means. At the time I was healthy. I have the financial means to be a father. I have the desire to be a father. Let's do it. Now, she at the time was a Venezuelan. She was visiting the US. She had already moved on to France when she found out that she was pregnant. But she was already infected by Western feminism. So
Right.
she was a very pro-choice female. And I really couldn't convince her to not go through with what she wanted to go through with. And that experience really just woke me up out of my slumber, when I'm like, that was my child in there, 50% my DNA. How come I had no rights? How come I didn't have any control? She had full decision-making capabilities, even when me as a man was saying, please don't.
Right.
But also it was international, so that gets a little tricky too. But my point is, that whole experience overall made me just, wow, like, why am I this is so weird to be pro-choice, especially me being adopted myself. One option that my biological mother had was to abort me. Now, thankfully, she was probably Christian or Catholic, because she was, in Mexico. She
Mhm.
chose to give me up for adoption instead. So when I started looking at my own existence, I was like, why not adoption? Why is that not always the go-to? Right? Like, why does it have to be kill, kill, kill? So
Right.
I've completely walked away from that ideology. I am a pro-life man now. As a matter of fact, I'm more towards abolition, where I think that abortion has to be completely banned, and I'd like to see the doctors who perform them criminalized. That's my view on that. Because I look at I look at doctors who do abortions as hitmen. They're basically assassins, except their target is a defenseless human being in the womb.
Mhm.
But that's how I view it now.
I'm happy to hear that, bro. That warms my heart. And if you look at who funds Planned Parenthood, it's the cabal, it's the Caesarean mafia. It's
Well, it's
all,
also our tax dollars too.
well, that too. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
one of the sickest parts. I don't care if the cabal wants to fund it. If they want to fund this nonsense, it's their money. Go for it. Have fun. That's your body, your choice, right? But I don't like that my tax dollars. If I tell the government today I don't want to pay taxes anymore because I don't like where you're spending, what happens to me? I get arrested for tax evasion. I go to jail. I got to pay money back to the government, right? I got to pay interest. I get screwed. But we have no control. So they take our tax dollars, hold them hostage, and they spend them where they want to. And we're
Right.
just like, got to pay our taxes. My money has to go towards funding abortions. That sucks.
I think that's going to change, though. I agree with you, and it does need to be defunded. And God is going to have His way, and there's going to be a lot of course correction. I think is a good way to
I
put
think
it.
blockchain needs to be used with our tax dollars. I
Oh
would love
yeah.
to see blockchain used, a transparent blockchain of tax dollars. You get a survey every year,
Mhm.
tells you how much you're paying in taxes, and you literally get to check box what percentage you want to go to. You pick 10, 15, 20 causes, and that's where your tax dollars go. And we'll see where Americans want to put their money. If liberals want to put towards their tax dollars towards abortion, they can check that box all they want, and at least I know that I'm not funding it. That's where we have to go. Transparent blockchain to deal with taxes.
Well, I got better news for you than that, brother. Is a lot of states are already, because President Trump during 2020, as you were pointing out earlier, had to do things internally during COVID, right? And so he baked the Fed into the, that's what I call it. He baked the Fed into the Treasury. And then what he did is he started allowing, we're going back to a constitutional republic. So the states are seceding away from the DC corporation, ostensibly allowing every state to self-govern as they should be
Yep.
constitutionally. So a lot of states, a good example would be Mike Lee from Utah, Florida with DeSantis, obviously, Texas with Abbott have already removed income tax. They're now working on capital gains, which is huge. So I think taxes are going to be frittered away, and they'll just be like basically a flat tax, which is be a consumption tax, only basically based on what you use. So if you don't smoke or drink, not necessarily paying for that, as an example, to deal with it. So, as I said, I think this thing is going to be decoupled, which is why we focus on our side so much heavily on economics, because when you free people up economically, you free up the effectuation of other decisions, as you mentioned earlier. So a couple of the questions I want to ask you, Adam, from this particular event and previous events and even subsequent events like the one coming up on Saturday. The first two questions would be, have you either on or off camera been able to have a conversation with somebody from the other side and be able to effectively convince them, or at least potentially persuade them to go another way?
It's really difficult to convince these people. The ones that are shown to protests are probably not convincible. That's just my honest view. What my content is meant for, because I get this question sometimes, right? Like, have you ever convinced somebody?
Yeah.
My content is meant, it's politics. I'm obviously a right winger, but I've created a channel that is actually more entertainment. I don't really do debates on my channel. I don't do like I'm talking about hour-long debates with
Yeah.
versus
Yeah.
someone else. I don't do some deep analysis on politics. That's not what my channel's for. My channel is really it's an entertainment channel. And so the way I think about it is, let's say you have a kid who's 18 and
Mm-hmm.
he's going to be voting for the first time in 2028, and he doesn't know anything about the parties. He doesn't know anything about policies. He's just trying to decide, I got to vote. I know I got to vote. Who am I going to vote for? And he stumbles across my channel and he sees this protest video from Tampa. And he sees the people on the right side wearing red, white, and blue MAGA hats, red, white, and blue flags, talking about how much they love this country. We all look relatively normal. And then he sees the other side of these Mexican flags, Palestinian flags, Ukraine flags, trans, non-binary, morbidly obese, purple hair, facial piercings, tattoos everywhere. Like, he just sees this weird hodgepodge of just like weirdness, right? And then he looks at how we behave. You have these people screaming, acting like fools, just acting wild, like lunatics. And then you have the Trump supporters generally acting a lot calmer, more rational. Who's he going to vote for? Which side are they going to be like, which people do I rather want to hang out with? That's who my content's really for, are for the middle Americans and aren't political pundits that are just trying to look at the situation, the culture war, and figure out who to vote for. But as far as in person, yesterday there were people at the protest that came up to me that were obviously their side, and they said to me, "We know who you are. We're aware of you. We don't think that you're one of the bad ones." And I was just like, that was kind of a pretty big compliment.
Yeah.
That they know that I'm a right winger. They know that I film content. They know that I monetize their rage, but they know that I'm not going overboard about it. They know I'm not rude. They know I'm not antagonistic. I just go around, I ask silly questions, smile on my face. When they say walk away, I generally walk away unless I feel like my First Amendment's being violated, then I'll stand on my grounds. But I'm generally very polite to these people, and I think that that can actually lead somewhere in the future.
No, I think it's good. You are not you do a good job of, in my opinion, standing your ground and being true to your beliefs without imposing yourself on them. It's
Yeah.
a balancing act, and I think that's one of the things that sort of drew me to you in the beginning. It's like, you're friendly and you're almost professional about it, but still passionate. It's a very hard line to walk, and I thought you do it quite well. Where is there an ultimate goal, or a long-term vision there where you want to see this go?
My channel you're talking about?
Your channel, or some of the, like, are you planning on taking it beyond the streets into like a studio thing, or is this kind of the end game here?
Well, unfortunately, I live in a studio and I don't have the space to really make it into a professional studio.
Gotcha.
Uh, Also, I have a lot of medical supplies at home, so I
Mhm.
don't feel comfortable having people in my home. It's just, this is like kind of like this is where I sleep. This is where I edit videos. This is where I have my medical supplies, because I do at home dialysis now.
Mhm.
Uh, for me to go into a studio, I'd probably have to rent one. And right now, I don't have the financial means to do that. I think if my channel keeps growing, I think once I'm at around probably 250,000 subs, I'll start earning enough where I could start reinvesting into things like a monthly studio rental. I actually did recently get served an ad on Facebook for a professional studio in Tampa. They charge you per hour per session, right? They do all the work for you.
Okay.
Uh, I'm thinking of actually renting it for future interviews with politicians that I want to win, that people I know locally that are running. I
Sure.
think I might actually start doing that. I'm going to see if they could pay for it though, because it should come out of their campaign funds. Since I'll be running on my channel, I'm already bringing my value to them.
Right.
Um, so maybe eventually, maybe some kind of studio. Long term, I'd like to run for office at some point. Not now. I need to get a transplant first, and I need to make a baby in the Philippines first. Once I have a transplant, then I get to move to the Philippines. Then I get to make a baby. And when the child is 2 or 3, I could then consider moving back to the US to pursue the political ambitions if I'm still interested in doing that and seeing where the country is headed. So that's kind of like the 8-year plan, maybe. I'll put it that way. But
Mhm.
for now, it's just hit the streets, keep creating fun, entertaining content with the right wing slant, and stay alive until I get the transplant.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. First things first.
Yep.
Has there been anything since you've been how long? Okay, so remind me, how long have you been on the streets now for? Like what, a year and a half?
Doing the street interviews.
Yeah,
I've been doing it 4.5 years now, man.
four
Four
and
and
a
a
half.
half years.
Okay, wow.
I
Okay,
started 3 months before last election, but
okay,
obviously I didn't know enough about policy. I didn't know enough about politics. I wasn't firm in my arguments. I didn't
right.
really know a lot. If you watch my earlier videos, they are so shallow and surface level, still entertaining, by the way,
Mhm.
but they are not like they are now, where I can actually go back and forth with almost anybody on the street with politics. Yesterday, I will say I did meet a lawyer. He was a lawyer, a left wing lawyer that didn't like Trump. I didn't put the video in the video yesterday because it was like a 6 minute conversation. I thought it would interrupt the flow of the video. I might post that content, but someone like him, I can't debate him when it comes to law. Like when it came down to like the intricacies of what Trump was found guilty of, I have no chance debating him. I was like, he knows the actual damn law. He's a lawyer. So in those situations, I can't win, but I still try to have fun and have an engaging conversation.
Sure, sure. Have you reached out to any members of the Trump team? Are they aware of you and what you're doing? Do they have any visibility?
There's some offshoots that are aware of me. I mean, I get followed by bigger and bigger people every day now. I just got followed on X by someone who's got 1.7 million subs. Some woman named Juanita Broderick or something. She's a pretty big
Uh-huh.
account.
Oh, sure.
So as my popularity grows and my follower counts grow, um, those opportunities are inevitable. I mean, they're already starting now. Alex Stein reached out to me, Blaze TV. That was a freaking honor.
Yeah.
Caitlin Bennett from Liberty Hangout, one of my biggest inspirations. She started reaching out to me. There's an organization called Black Exit, which I'm
Mhm.
sure you might have heard of. They invited me to their event. They offered me a free flight. It's here in Tampa, so I can't take advantage of the free flight. But they offered me a free flight and hotel if I was not local.
Right.
So, and I just spoke at a Latino Coalition event, and that speech is going to be on my next YouTube video that I gave. It's a 3 minute speech that I gave. So these opportunities are starting to come. My name's getting out there, and I'm going to keep going and just see where this takes me.
Cool. Is there anything since you've been doing the podcast, particularly in the last, we'll say the last 2 years in sort of your coming of age, if you will, from your beginning roots, is there anything that you've seen that sort of surprised you that you didn't expect?
Let me see what surprised me. I have very wide range of expectations, so it is kind of difficult to throw me off. The one thing I will say though, which I don't like at all, is the amount of gossip that just happens on X. A lot of times I see a lot of in party like mudslinging contests, and I'm like, yo, we got to look at the bigger picture. Like we got to step back and realize if we're all wearing MAGA hats, we're under the same umbrella. We have to find what unites us more than what divides us. That
Right.
is what's going to make us approachable to more people. It's going to keep us as the friendlier party. And I already do think we are the party of love and tolerance compared to the other side. I really do believe we are that. But I think that sometimes the gossip and the mudslinging and the infighting. I also, and I will be honest about this, I also, one thing that bothers me is how much anti-Israel and anti-Jewish rhetoric I see from the right wing. Not a lot of the right wing, by the way.
Yeah.
And again, I have no problem with someone critiquing the Israeli government. That's
Mhm.
fair game. But the whole Jews run the world and Jews are evil and responsible for every evil. I'm
Right.
Jewish and I'm like, I don't own anything.
Yeah.
I don't even own a home. I don't know what they're talking about. I would love if that was a privilege because I would be very rich and wealthy right now. And I'm not any of that. No one funds me. I fund myself.
Right.
So I think those are the surprises. I needed a moment to think about it, but I'd say those are the surprises.
Sure.
The gossip and the blatant anti-Semitism that I sometimes see from the right wing. I don't like those two things.
Right. I just wanted to try to ask you some, out of the box questions just to,
That's a new one. Never been asked that before. That was good.
you got to have something unique to bring to the table, right?
Yeah, you had
And
me pausing for a second.
oh, good. That means we're doing our job.
Yeah.
Well, I'm used to dealing with other great guests we have, so it challenges me to go deeper, and I want to do that with you likewise. Just sidebar before my last question for today is, you and anything. But again, as a Christian, I believe that we are supposed to support Israel as the true chosen ones. I'm talking about the true Jews, not the Caesarian and all the bad ones, because there's good and bad in every culture, no doubt. But the true Jews of Israel we're supposed to support. And so I agree with you on that. And again, that goes back to what you talked about synergy, right? There's a lot more. You've talked about it on some of your street team events, like when you're trying to find common ground with people. If you get somebody who's maybe in the middle, they're not too left or right, you're trying to find the common ground. And that's what I think we should be doing as God's people, is coming together, not being so divisive. So I support you on that. As we finish up just for today, Adam, talk a little bit about, only because we don't normally do this with my audience, but I'm, because I like you and I'm making an exception with you because you fall into sort of a unique sort of nebulous case with the health challenges. I'm going to ask my audience to support you if they should feel led to do so with donations, but talk a little bit about the health challenges you're going through, how they started, and kind of your journey and where you are to present day.
Yeah, so I mean, in 2009, I was diagnosed. I went to the hospital in 2009. This was a long time ago. I went through a kidney biopsy and I got some bad news that my kidneys were damaged. They wanted to do further tests, but at the time I was 25. I was healthy. I was young. I looked in the mirror. I had a six pack. I was like, what the hell are these people talking about? I don't want to go through this. And my mom had just died from cancer. So the last thing I wanted to do was deal with any more medical things in my life. So I never went back to the doctor after that. I just said, F that, never got my blood drawn since until 2022. And in 2022, I started having leg problems. My left leg was just in massive amounts of pain for about 3 months. I was limping everywhere. And finally, I said, you know what? The medication I was getting over the counter in Mexico, because over there you get anything you want.
Mhm.
The medication just wasn't working. Gout medication wasn't working. Steroids weren't working. Aspirin wasn't working. Painkillers wasn't working. I said, it's been 3 months of this. I need to go finally get my blood checked. Plus, I was out of breath. Plus, I was having trouble peeing. And I was just like, there's got to be something wrong with me. I went to the doctor in Mexico and he took one look at my blood and said, this is the worst blood I've seen in 15 years. The toxins in my blood were so elevated. He said, you are going to take a nap in the next couple of days and you're not going to wake up. He said, you are going to die. You're days from death, Adam. He said, you need to book a flight back to the US for emergency dialysis. And I broke down crying because number one, I've always felt invincible physically. I was very strong, very jacked. And number two, I never knew what dialysis was. I thought I'd have to walk around with a machine the rest of my life. I didn't realize it was something you plug into at home or in a clinic. I thought it was something that'd be attached to me permanently.
Right.
And so I got diagnosed with kidney failure caused by autoimmune, which is the disease is called glomerulonephritis. It's when the immune system attacks a healthy organ, starting from childhood, usually after a strep throat infection. So pretty wild stuff. So that's what I'm diagnosed with. I am on the transplant list, been on it for 3 years. And people could donate to my Gifts and Go, giftsandgo.com/Adam Francisco.
Great. And yeah, I'll put that link in the description as I did last time. If it doesn't go, I'm no, you're not worried about it, folks. It doesn't go to me. It goes directly to Adam. I've got no dog in the fight. It's just to support him and help out a fellow brother and patriot. I think you mentioned last time on our podcast something that really struck me with regards to this discussion. Did I hear you right? You haven't urinated in almost 3 years?
I haven't, well, I haven't urinated in 3 years, meaning I have not sat down and peed, and I have not stood up and peed in the toilet bowl. It just doesn't happen. However, in the past 3 years, I can say I was hospitalized this January for stomach infection, because originally I was doing dialysis through my stomach, and the medical device got infected, and it hospitalized me for almost about 2.5, 3 weeks, and I lost about 17 pounds. I'm 5'10". I got down to 149.
Ooh,
My face looked completely sunk in, it was crazy. I was so weak and frail.
yeah,
Um, Whatever medication they gave to me in the hospital that time, I peed for the first time in years. And when I say peed, I don't mean a full urination. I mean something came out of
urethra.
my urethra. It was probably about, I wish I had a cup I could show you. Yeah, I got a bottle of water. Let me show you how much came out. Let
Okay,
me show you how much came out. So this is a Poland Spring bottle of water.
right.
You see this, the lowest rung,
Mm-hmm.
probably about that much came out. But it was enough for me to feel like I was peeing for the first time in years. And it was enough for me to hear urine hitting the toilet bowl for the first time in years. And I was so confused. I was like, what the hell? I was like, what was that noise? Because I just wasn't expecting it.
Right.
And that is the honest truth. I have not peed in 3 years,
Hmm.
minus that one experience that I had in the hospital. I don't know what it was. I don't know how it happened, but it did, and it was a glorious moment. And I do dream that I have many dreams where I'm peeing. So I do know that my subconscious misses it and needs it. It's a natural human thing to do that.
Yeah.
And that was taken from me with kidney failure. It's crazy.
You know, Adam, as you share, thank you for your honesty. As you share your situation, it reminds me every day that I spend time with, I told you before offline, I spend time with God in the field each morning to show gratitude. It's amazing the things that we can take for granted that we don't think about, like breathing, eating, going to the bathroom, sleeping. These are things that we just think should be commonplace. And then we meet somebody like you who is, well, for the moment, challenged with that. And it makes you take a step back and go, I need to be more grateful for the things that I've taken for granted. So thanks for, in a way, reminding us and myself to not take those things for granted and appreciate every little nuance of life that we have.
There's a thought experiment people do, and they say, you ask someone, do you want $1 billion right now? $1 billion.
Mhm.
Everyone's going to say, yeah, of course I want $1 billion. You say, but you die tomorrow. So you get to be a billionaire for one day. And then everyone, of course, says, no, fuck that. I don't want, excuse me. Everyone goes, no, I don't want the $1 billion. I want to live.
Right.
And so you tell them, so you'll accept the way your life currently is, and you'll bypass the billion? And they go, yeah, of course. And so to me, it's like that situation when I've lost my health, and I'm still relatively healthy compared to other dialysis patients. But when I lost my health and I became dependent on a machine, do you think I care about like money at all anymore? Do you think I care about like things at all anymore? They mean absolutely nothing to me. If I could get a kidney transplant right now and you took everything I had except for my dogs, but you took all I was worth, all my money, I would not give a shit. I'd be take all the money, just give me the kidney and I'll figure it out from there.
Yeah.
And so that's what I try to tell people. Like when you think you're having a shitty day, just be grateful that you don't have cancer, because cancer is the only disease that's more time consuming than kidney failure. Be grateful you don't have cancer or kidney failure. And there's other diseases too you could add to that list. But those two personally affected my life. Not cancer. My family has had some experiences. So I just tell people, like, no matter how bad your day is, you can still piss. So you can still urinate. You're doing okay.
Well, it humbles you and it reminds you, it puts things in a proper perspective very quickly, I think is what
Yeah.
I'm saying. And I appreciate you doing that because it gets it down to a microscopic level for anyone who's listening. It's just a great, reminder that, count your blessings is really what I
I
think
agree.
it drives home. So I thank you for, sort of reminding us all of that. And as I mentioned to you before in closing, um, one of the many other great things that President Trump and RFK Jr. and a whole bunch of his coalition of staff are working to do is bring out, I believe, sooner or later this year, med beds, which is going to
Yep.
just solve the problem wholesale. Cancer never needed to exist as a parasite, as you know. That there's going to be a lot of things that we don't have to deal with anymore, and we can really reset our bodies greater capacity, which I'm really excited, to see you flourish with that. So.
Cool.
The best is yet to come, as they say.
The best is yet to come.
Absolutely. So, Adam, as we leave your gifts and go link, any last thoughts you have for the audience today?
No, I mean, look, I was on the news yesterday saying the same thing here. You know, MAGA, we support immigrants. We love immigrants. We just want people to do it legally, do it the right way.
Right.
And if you have any issues with Trump, all we ask is that you protest peacefully. Any violent, destructive protests, riots, they're not going to help your cause. They're going to hurt your cause in the long run. So if you have a problem with Trump, that's totally fine. We don't have to agree with everything. We don't have to agree with all his policies. Just protest peacefully. And MAGA loves immigrants.
Sounds good. Adam Francisco, thanks for joining us on the podcast once again, for coming back
Thank
for
you,
the
John.
conversation. We'll look forward to having you again, and we'll continue to support your channel as you go out there and fight the good fight. Thanks,
Thank
brother.
you, John.
And we'll talk to you soon.
Appreciate it.